The reactor breach did not feel dramatic. There was no explosion big enough to justify the warning sirens screaming like offended opera singers, no heroic fireball roaring through the chamber. It was quieter than that, which somehow felt worse. A wrong number, a delayed seal, a fraction of a second too late, and the radiation slipped into the maintenance ring like an uninvited thought you couldn't get rid of. Caleb Hart discovered this when his dosimeter chirped once, paused, and then began screaming in a way that suggested it was having a nervous breakdown. He stared at the display, blinking slowly. "No," he said to it, calmly, reasonably, as if the device might apologize and correct itself. The numbers climbed anyway. His suit registered the breach, sealed too late, and pumped him full of counteragents that felt like fizzy water in his veins. The station's AI spoke with perfect composure, which Caleb decided was deeply rude under the circumstances. "Technician Hart," it said, "you have been exposed to a lethal dose of ionizing radiation. Estimated survival time, 4 hours and 12 minutes. Please remain calm." "Remain calm," Caleb repeated. "Fantastic advice. I'll just pencil that in between, die slowly, and regret career choices." His legs carried him to the nearest bulkhead almost on their own. He sat, slid down until the metal pressed cold against his back, and focused on breathing. The chamber lights dimmed to emergency levels, bathing everything in amber. Somewhere beyond the thick walls, the reactor was being sealed off, automated systems taking over now that human presence had become a liability. Caleb had spent 10 years keeping machines alive in space. It seemed only fair that the machines would return the favor by watching him die very efficiently. Pain didn't arrive all at once. It crept in, polite at first, like a guest who wasn't sure if they were welcome. His stomach tightened. His vision blurred at the edges. He laughed once, surprised by the sound. "Of course," he muttered. "Of course this is how it ends. Not pirates, not aliens, not even a cool decompression accident. A math error." The station AI continued to offer updates. Caleb ignored it. He thought about coffee he'd never drink again, planets he'd only seen through screens, and the toolbox he'd left floating in Bay 7. He wondered briefly if anyone would bother retrieving it. Probably not. Tools were replaceable. Technicians apparently were too. Just slower. That was when the alarm stopped. Not faded, not silenced by command. They simply ceased, as if someone had reached into the air and turned the concept of noise off. Caleb frowned. The lights stabilized. The pressure in his ears eased. For one ridiculous second, he thought he'd died already, and this was the disappointing calm of the afterlife. Then someone spoke. "You're handling this better than most." Caleb looked up. A woman stood a few meters away, just inside the containment ring, where no one was supposed to be. She wore no suit, no mask, nothing but dark, unfamiliar clothing that looked woven rather than manufactured. Her hair fell loose over her shoulders, pale against the dim light. She appeared human at first glance, almost, but then his gaze caught on her ears. They were long, tapering elegantly back through her hair, unmistakably not human. "Okay," Caleb said hoarsely. "Either I'm hallucinating, or the station's security protocols are worse than I thought." "Hallucinations are usually less coherent," she replied, "and they rarely comment on your posture. You should sit straighter. Radiation or not, slouching will ruin your spine." He snorted before he could stop himself, which immediately hurt. "Great. Judgmental aliens. That's new." She stepped closer, unconcerned by the radiation warnings still blinking on his suit display. Up close, her eyes were an unusual shade. Too deep, too steady. She looked at him the way engineers looked at failing systems, not with panic, but with assessment. "My name is Nissa," she said, "and you are dying." "Yes," Caleb said. "I got the memo, several times, in very calming fonts." Her lips twitched, almost a smile. "Humans cope with humor when confronted with inevitability. I've noticed that." "Then you've been watching us for a while," he said, "which is unsettling, but honestly not the worst thing that's happened today." Nissa tilted her head slightly. "You don't ask how I'm here." "I figured I'd work up to it," Caleb replied. "Right now I'm pacing myself. Existential dread first, questions later." She regarded him for a long moment, then extended her hand. Her skin caught the light faintly, as if it reflected more than it absorbed. I can save you. Caleb stared at her hand, then at his dosimeter, then back at her face. Let me guess, at a price. Yes. Figures, he murmured. Nothing's free, not even death, apparently. Nisa didn't withdraw her hand. My blood can repair the damage in your cells. All of it. You would survive. Fully. And the catch, he asked? She met his gaze and something old and heavy passed through her eyes. You would be bound to me? Caleb laughed weakly. Bound how? Because I should tell you up front, I'm terrible at commitments. Her expression softened, just a fraction. Immortality is not something you ease into with jokes. Then it's a good thing I don't ease into anything, he said. His breath hitched. Pain surged again, sharper now. Look, Nisa, I appreciate the offer, truly, but maybe explain the whole bound thing before I agree to eternal consequences while my organs are actively rebelling. She lowered her hand, respecting the pause. If you drink my blood, you will not age. You will not die by time or disease, but you will share my fate. And your fate is exile, she said simply. The words settled between them, heavier than the radiation ever had. Caleb swallowed, feeling sweat bead under his suit. 4 hours, the AI had said. Less now. He looked at her long ears, at the calm certainty in her posture, at the strange kindness in her voice. You really know how to make a dying man feel special, he said. Nisa finally smiled, small and sad. I know how to tell the truth, she replied. The question is whether you're ready to live with it. Caleb stared at Nisa for a long moment, long enough that the station AI politely attempted to interrupt with another countdown update. He waved at the empty air where the voice usually manifested. Not now, he said. I'm in negotiations. Nisa raised an eyebrow. With me? With eternity, he replied. You're just the spokesperson. She seemed to accept that. She stepped back, giving him space which was considerate for someone offering immortality during a radiation emergency. Caleb appreciated the courtesy. His hands were trembling now, fine motor controls slipping like a bad signal. He pressed them against his thighs and breathed through his nose. Exile, he repeated. That's a strong word. Usually comes with pamphlets. It should, Nisa said. Would have saved me several centuries of confusion. He let out a weak laugh that turned into a cough. Okay, walk me through this, slowly. Pretend I'm an idiot. Not hard, I know. I will pretend nothing, she said evenly. My people do not give immortality lightly. Blood is not merely biology to us. It is memory, continuity. To share it is to share consequence. That sounds ominous, Caleb said. You practiced that line? Once, she replied. It did not go well. He imagined that. Some ancient ceremony, someone else standing where he was now, healthier, less irradiated. The thought made his chest ache for reasons unrelated to radiation. So if I drink your blood, I live forever and get kicked out of wherever you're from. Yes. And if I don't? You will die in approximately 3 hours and 46 minutes, she said, glancing briefly at his dosimeter. Your station is very thorough. Always has been, he muttered. Okay, follow-up question. Why offer this to me? You could have let me die quietly. You don't strike me as someone who collects strays. Nisa was silent for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was softer. Because you didn't panic. That's because I was busy being annoyed. Still, she said, most humans beg, or scream, or try to bargain without understanding the cost. You asked for the truth. Caleb shifted, wincing as pain lanced through his side. I like to know what I'm agreeing to before it ruins my life. It will ruin it, Nisa said calmly, and then it will give you another one. He closed his eyes, let his head rest back against the bulkhead. The metal felt warmer now, or maybe that was him. You're very bad at sales, he said. I am not selling, she replied. I am offering. The station lights flickered faintly as distant systems powered down. Through a viewport across the chamber, stars burned cold and indifferent. Caleb wondered how many of them Nissa had seen, how many people she'd outlived. Tell me about the exile, he said, the part you're leaving out. Nissa sat on the deck opposite him, folding her legs beneath her with unhurried grace. The radiation did not touch her. That alone was answer enough to several unasked questions. I was cast out for refusing obedience, she said. Our society values continuity above choice. I chose differently. Let me guess, Caleb said. They didn't love that. They were furious, she said. They are still furious. Time does not soften conviction. It sharpens it. So you're banned forever. Yes. And anyone tied to you is banned too. Yes. Caleb opened his eyes again, studying her face. She didn't look angry or bitter, mostly tired. That's a long sentence. I've had time to get used to it. He chuckled weakly. Of course you have. Another wave of nausea rolled through him. He swallowed hard. What about me? He asked. Do I get anything besides immortality and cosmic house arrest? Nisa considered. You will not be alone. That landed harder than anything else she'd said. Caleb looked away quickly, focusing on a crack in the bulkhead sealant. Bold promise, he said. You barely know me. I know enough, she replied. You stayed. You didn't run when the alarm sounded. You kept the reactor stable long enough for evacuation. You joke when afraid. Wow, he said. You make it sound heroic. My therapist would be thrilled. She smiled faintly. The expression looked unfamiliar on her face, like something rarely used. You are more than you think, Caleb Hart. Hearing his name from her lips sent an unexpected shiver through him. Careful, he said. You keep talking like that, and I might start believing you. They sat in silence for a while. The station AI, perhaps sensing a lull, resumed its countdown. Caleb ignored it again. So, he said eventually, let's say I say yes. What happens next? Do we shake hands? Is there chanting? No chanting, Nissa said. I am very firm on that. Good, he said. I hate chanting. She moved closer again, close enough now that he could smell something faint and unfamiliar, like rain on metal. You drink, she said, and then you endure. Endure what? Change, she replied. Pain, memory, connection. Sounds like every bad relationship I've ever had, he said. She laughed softly, genuinely this time. The sound surprised them both. Caleb felt his vision dimming at the edges. Time was slipping. The jokes were getting harder to reach. He looked at Nisa, really looked at her, and saw not a miracle or a curse, but a choice standing patiently in front of him. Nissa, he said quietly, if I do this, do you regret it, offering it to me? She met his gaze without hesitation. No. Even if I turn out to be incredibly annoying for the next few thousand years. Her smile returned, sharper now. Especially then. He laughed, breathless. You know how to make eternity sound tempting. She extended her hand once more. This time he didn't pull away. Nisa did not rush him. That more than anything unsettled Caleb. If someone offers you a miracle while you are actively dying, you expect urgency, pressure, maybe a countdown projected in the air for dramatic effect. Instead, she sat beside him as if they were waiting for a delayed shuttle, hands folded loosely, posture relaxed, eyes occasionally drifting to the far viewport where stars slid past in slow indifference. Caleb's body, on the other hand, had very clear opinions about the situation. His skin prickled as if charged with static. His mouth tasted like copper and old regret. When he shifted, pain flared, sharp and bright, then dulled again into something heavy and exhausting. You're fading? Nessa said gently. I noticed, he replied. It's subtle, but I'm picking up on the clues. She glanced at his dosimeter again. Your cellular decay is accelerating. You have less time than you think. That's comforting, he said. I was worried I might linger. She gave him a look that suggested she understood humor as a survival reflex rather than a personality flaw. If you want more answers, ask now. Caleb closed his eyes for a moment, gathering the strength to keep his voice steady. Tell me what it's like, he said. The immortality part, not the brochure version, the real one. Nisa leaned back against the bulkhead, long ears brushing the metal. At first it feels like triumph, she said. Every wound closes. Every illness retreats. You feel correct, as if the universe finally agreed you were allowed to exist. That sounds nice, Caleb murmured. It lasts, she continued, until the first time you watch someone you care about age. Then again, And again, time becomes uneven. Days blur, centuries acquire weight. Do you lose track? He asked. No, she said. That would be easier. He winced as another wave of dizziness hit. Figures. So no blissful ignorance. Just memory forever. Yes. Caleb opened his eyes again, forcing focus. And the bond. You said I'd be bound to you. How literal is that? Nisa hesitated. That hesitation carried more weight than any warning. You will feel me, she said. Not always, not constantly, but you will know when I'm in pain, when I am afraid, when I am alone. He swallowed. Do you get the same deal with me? Yes. Well, he said weakly, that hardly seems fair. I'm very emotionally inconvenient. Her lips curved faintly. So am I. Silence stretched again, punctuated only by the soft hum of the station's failing systems. Caleb watched a small maintenance drone drift past the viewport, aimless now that its directives had been wiped. He wondered if that was what exile felt like. Still functional, but with nowhere to report back to. Your people, he said after a while. Are they still out there? Yes. And they'd know if I joined you. They would feel it, Nisa replied. They would know another soul had chosen exile. That must make family gatherings awkward, he said. She laughed quietly, the sound carrying both humor and something sharper beneath it. You joke, she said. But yes, it does. Caleb's vision blurred again. He wiped at his eyes, surprised when his hand came away shaking. I had plans, he said suddenly. Nothing grand. Just things. I was going to take a job planetside, somewhere with an ocean. I wanted to learn how to cook something that didn't come in a tube. You still can, Nissa said. Not like this, he replied. Not as whatever I'd be. As someone who survived, she said. He shook his head slightly. As someone who left everyone behind. Nissa shifted closer, close enough now that he could feel a faint warmth radiating from her skin. Everyone leaves someone behind, she said softly. Mortality only disguises it. He looked at her then, really looked, past the alien features that still startled his brain every few seconds. He saw a woman who had carried centuries like quiet scars, who had learned to offer eternity with honesty rather than romance. You're lonely, he said. She did not deny it. Yes. Is that why you offered? He asked. No, she said. But it is why I did not lie. The station AI chimed again, insistent now. Caleb laughed weakly. I swear, if that thing gives me one more update, I'm haunting it. Nissa reached out and with a small, precise motion, silenced the system entirely. The sudden quiet felt profound, like the universe holding its breath. There, she said, no more interruptions. See, he murmured. You already make my life better. His head lolled slightly, exhaustion dragging at him. Nissa, he said, voice rough. If I say yes, promise me something. She met his gaze. What? Don't make me regret it alone, he said. If I'm going to be an outcast for eternity, I'd like at least one person to complain to. Something flickered in her eyes then, surprise perhaps, or relief. I promise, she said. I am very good at listening. He exhaled slowly, feeling the edges of consciousness fray. Okay, he whispered. Okay. I'm not saying yes yet. She nodded, accepting even that. Then rest, she said. You'll need your strength. As darkness crept closer, Caleb found himself smiling faintly. Dying, it turned out, was less terrifying when the universe sat beside you and waited for your answer. Caleb did not sleep so much as drift. Consciousness slid in and out like a faulty airlock, never fully sealed, never completely open. Time lost its edges. At some point, pain stopped announcing itself loudly and settled into a dull, pervasive ache, as if his body had decided screaming was inefficient. Nissa remained nearby. He could tell even when his eyes were closed. It was not sight or sound that gave her away, but a presence, steady, anchored, like gravity, that refused to let him float too far into nothingness. Once, when his breathing grew shallow, he felt her hand rest lightly on his shoulder. Not to heal, not yet. Just to keep him here. When he woke more fully, the station looked different. Emergency lighting had shifted again, cooler now, almost serene. Through the viewport, the stars seemed sharper, as if someone had adjusted the focus of reality. "You're back," Nisa said. "I object to the phrasing," Caleb muttered. "I was never really gone. Just, buffering." She smiled faintly. "Your metaphors are deteriorating." "Radiation poisoning will do that," he replied. "Side effect they don't mention in the safety manuals." He tried to sit up and failed. His muscles responded with all the enthusiasm of a workforce that had already filed its resignation. He groaned. "I knew I should have stretched more." Nisa leaned forward, placing a hand near his chest, not touching, just hovering. "Your body is shutting systems down to conserve energy," she said. "It believes death is inevitable." "Optimistic little thing," he said. "Always thinking ahead." She tilted her head. "You still joke." "Habit," he said. "Also fear. Mostly fear." "That is acceptable," she replied. Caleb stared at the ceiling, watching faint diagnostic glyphs crawl across it before fading out. "I've been thinking," he said. "That can be dangerous," Nissa said. "Rude," he replied, then sighed. "About you. About this bond. You said I'd feel you. What does that actually mean?" Nissa considered her answer carefully. "It means you will never again mistake isolation for privacy," she said. "Your thoughts will still be yours. Your choices will remain your own. But when emotion becomes strong enough, it echoes." "Like emotional feedback?" he asked. "Yes. That sounds loud." "It can be," she admitted. "At first." He closed his eyes again. "And you've done this before?" "Yes." "How many times?" Nisa hesitated just long enough for him to notice. "Too many," she said. Caleb opened one eye, squinting at her. "That's not comforting." "I am not trying to comfort you," she said. "I am trying to be honest." He let out a soft laugh that ended in a wince. "You're really committed to that." "It is all I have left that I trust," she said. The words settled between them, heavy but unforced. Caleb felt something twist in his chest that had nothing to do with damaged tissue. "What happened to the others?" he asked quietly. "Some chose it without understanding," she said. "They resented me. Some understood too late. Some endured for a time and then separated." "You can separate." "Yes," she said, "but not cleanly. It is painful." "Define painful," Caleb said, "because my scale is currently skewed." She gave him a look. "More painful than this." He grimaced. "That's impressive." Another silence stretched. Outside the viewport, a distant ship slipped into view, a small transport vectoring away from the station. Evacuation complete. No one was coming back for him. "Well," Caleb said, "looks like I've officially been forgotten." Nisa followed his gaze. "You are not forgotten," she said. "You are simply no longer their responsibility." "Ah," he replied, "much better." She shifted, sitting closer again. "If you want to refuse," she said, "I will stay with you until the end." He turned his head slowly to look at her. "You do that?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because no one should die alone," she said, "immortal or not." Caleb swallowed. His throat felt tight, dry. "You know," he said, "for someone cursed with eternal exile, you're remarkably decent." "That is not what my people would say." "Then your people have terrible judgment," he replied. "I work with machines. I know incompetence when I see it." A small, genuine laugh escaped her before she could stop it. She covered it with a cough that fooled no one. "You are exhausting," she said. "Wait until eternity," he murmured. "I really hit my stride around year 300. His vision blurred again. Darkness pressing closer, heavier this time. He felt panic flare, hot, sharp, but before it could take hold, something else brushed against his awareness. Not a voice, not a thought, a feeling, concern, focused, controlled, but undeniably there. Nissa stiffened slightly. "Was that?" Caleb whispered. "Yes," she said quietly. "You felt me." "So I'm already—" "No," she said. "But the boundary thins as you weaken." He let out a shaky breath that was half laugh, half sob. "Great. So I get a preview." "I am sorry," she said. He shook his head weakly. Don't be, it's strange, but not bad. She watched him closely now, as if recalibrating something she thought she understood. You are adapting faster than most. Survival instinct, he said. Also, you're less terrifying than you think. That is not what history suggests. History doesn't know you, he replied. The darkness surged again, harder this time. Caleb's breath hitched. His fingers curled against the deck, numb and heavy. He knew somehow that the next time he slipped, he might not come back on his own. Nisa moved closer, her hand finally resting against his chest. He felt warmth spread from the contact. Not healing, not yet, but anchoring, holding. Caleb, she said softly, when the moment comes, you must choose quickly. He nodded faintly. I know. And if you choose life, she continued, there is no turning back. He managed a crooked smile. You say that like death has a return policy. Her hand tightened just slightly. You are afraid. Yes, he admitted, but not of you. For the first time since she had appeared, Nisa looked genuinely unsteady. That, she said quietly, may be the most dangerous thing you've said yet. Caleb's eyes fluttered closed again, but this time he did not drift as far. He held on to the warmth beneath her hand, onto the echo of her presence in his mind, and wondered not for the first time whether the price of eternity was really exile or simply the courage to choose someone when the universe gave you every reason not to. The moment arrived without ceremony. There was no dramatic shift in the lights, no cosmic vibration announcing a crossroads. Caleb simply became aware that his body had reached a quiet, unanimous decision to stop trying. His breathing slowed into shallow, inefficient pulls, each one feeling optional. The pain receded, not because it had been defeated, but because sensation itself was beginning to loosen its grip. Nisa noticed immediately. Caleb, she said, her voice firm now, cutting through the haze. Stay with me. I am, he murmured. Mostly. The rest of me has, stepped out for coffee. She did not smile this time. She leaned closer, one hand still against his chest, the other lifting his chin gently so he had no choice but to look at her. Her eyes were brighter now, not glowing, but focused with an intensity that made the air feel tighter. This is it, she said. Your organs are failing in sequence. You have minutes. Always wanted to be efficient, he said faintly. So, guess this is where you ask me one last time? Yes, she replied. Are you ready to pay the price? He exhaled slowly, a breath that felt like it might be his last. Humor rose instinctively, thin but stubborn. You know, he said, most people wait until at least the third date before asking something that intense. Nisa's lips twitched despite herself. Immortality tends to accelerate relationships. Figures, he said. His vision tunneled, the edges darkening. He focused on her face, on the unfamiliar lines and angles that had somehow become the most solid thing in his world. Okay, he whispered. No more stalling. She withdrew her hand from his chest. For the first time since they had met, she looked uncertain. Not afraid, Nissa did not seem capable of that in the way humans were, but weighted by something close. If you drink, she said carefully, there will be no gradual transition. Your body will resist. Your mind will fracture before it reassembles. That sounds unpleasant, he said. It is, she agreed, and once it begins, I cannot stop it. Good, he murmured. I hate half measures. Nissa inhaled, a slow, deliberate motion, then brought her wrist to her mouth. Her teeth pierced her skin with precise ease. There was no blood at first. Then a thin, luminous line welled up, darker than red, catching the light in a way that made Caleb's fading senses sharpen painfully. The smell hit him immediately, not metallic, not sweet, something deeper. Old, like storms that remembered themselves. Drink, she said. He tried to lift his head and failed. His body had officially gone on strike. Right, he said weakly. Minor logistical issue. Nissa did not hesitate. She knelt beside him, supporting his shoulders, bringing her wrist to his lips. Her blood brushed his mouth, warm and impossibly alive. He paused, not out of fear, out of clarity. If I do this, he said hoarsely, you don't get to disappear on me later. No mysterious immortal vanishing acts. Her gaze locked onto his. I will not leave you. Ever. Yes. He smiled faintly. Okay then, I'm in. He drank. The first sensation was heat, not warmth. Fire, sudden and violent, racing through his mouth, down his throat, igniting every nerve it touched. He gasped, choking, but Nessa held him steady, unyielding. Then came pain, not localized, not describable. His body screamed as if every cell had been informed, simultaneously, that its understanding of reality was incorrect. Radiation damage reversed itself with brutal efficiency, tearing apart corrupted tissue and rebuilding it faster than his mind could process. Memories surfaced, his own, and not his own, overlapping, colliding. He saw stars he had never visited, heard languages he did not know but somehow understood, felt loneliness stretched across centuries like an endless corridor. He screamed. Nisa did not let go. You are not breaking, she said, her voice inside his head now as much as outside. You are changing. I didn't agree to this part, he thought, or said. He couldn't tell anymore. You agreed to all of it, she replied. Hold on to me. He did. Not physically, his body was convulsing, arching against the deck. But something deeper reached out, grasping at the presence he now felt as clearly as his own heartbeat. Fear, determination, a fierce, unexpected protectiveness. Hers. The pain peaked, then shattered. Caleb gasped, drawing in a breath that felt impossibly full. His lungs burned, then cleared. His heart slammed once, twice, then settled into a powerful, steady rhythm. Silence followed. Not the absence of sound, but a profound stillness, as if the universe had stepped back to observe the result. Nisa collapsed beside him, bracing herself on one hand, breathing harder than he had ever seen her breathe. Well, Caleb croaked, that was, invigorating. She let out a shaky sound that might have been a laugh. You are insufferable. Immortal now, he said. You'll get used to it. He lay there for a long moment, stunned by the absence of pain. His body felt whole, strong, awake in a way it had never been before. He flexed his fingers, marveling at the precision. Then something shifted. A feeling, not his, washed through him. Relief, exhaustion, something dangerously close to joy. Oh, he said softly, that's you. Nisa looked at him sharply. You can feel me already. Yeah, he said. And wow, you really don't do this often, do you? Her shoulders sagged, tension bleeding away. No, she admitted. I do not. He turned his head to face her, really face her, with eyes that now saw more than they had minutes ago. Hey, he said gently, I'm still here. I know, she replied. I feel you. A grin spread slowly across his face, tired but unmistakably alive. Well, he said, I guess this is where the Outcast Club meets. She stared at him for a long moment, then shook her head, something like disbelief crossing her features. You chose exile. He nodded. Yeah. Turns out dying alone sounded worse. Outside the viewport, the stars continued their silent drift. Inside the abandoned station, two exiles lay side by side, one ancient, one newly born into eternity, bound not by destiny but by choice, in the quiet, irreversible decision to face forever together. Caleb discovered immortality came with paperwork, not literal paperwork, no glowing contracts or cosmic fine print, but the universe did seem to expect some administrative adjustment. His body woke fully over the next several hours, systems recalibrating with unsettling enthusiasm. Hunger hit first, sharp and insistent, followed by an equally aggressive thirst. I could eat the station, he said, sitting up far too easily for someone who had been dying minutes earlier. Possibly literally. Nisa watched him with an expression that balanced relief and scrutiny. Your metabolism is stabilizing. It will be dramatic at first. Fantastic, he said. I finally survived death and immediately turned into a bottomless pit. She handed him a sealed ration pack scavenged from an emergency locker. He tore it open, inhaled, and grimaced. Immortality, exile, and algae protein paste. You really know how to spoil a man. You will adapt, she said. He shoveled the paste into his mouth anyway. To his surprise, it tasted better than he remembered. Richer. Complex. He paused mid-bite. Either this stuff improved, or my taste buds have been upgraded. Both, Nissa said. Your senses are enhanced. Great, he muttered. Now I'll be even more offended by bad food. They moved through the station together once he was steady on his feet. The alarms remained silent, the AI dormant at Nissa's insistence. The corridors felt smaller now, less threatening. Caleb noticed details he'd never paid attention to before. Micro-fractures in the walls, residual energy patterns clinging to conduits like fingerprints. This is new, he said, squinting at a junction panel. I can see the radiation scars? Nissa nodded. You are perceiving the after effects of energy. Time leaves marks. You can see some of them now. Well, he said, that's not ominous at all. The first real shock came when he caught his reflection in a dark viewport. He looked the same. No glowing eyes, no ominous aura. Just Caleb Hart, slightly paler, eyes sharper, posture straighter. That's it? He asked. No dramatic visual upgrade? I was hoping for at least a scar or something. Nissa tilted her head. You are disappointed. A little, he admitted. Feels like false advertising. You will change, she said, just not where you expect. They reached a docking bay where an old scout vessel waited, half forgotten and still functional. Nissa ran a hand along its hull, familiarity in the gesture. You've been here before, Caleb said. Yes. And you left? Yes. He hesitated. You ever regret it? The exile? Nissa powered up the vessel systems, lights blooming to life. Sometimes, she said, but regret assumes an alternative I could live with. Caleb felt something stir at the back of his mind, a quiet ache that wasn't his. He winced. Okay, that's definitely you. She glanced at him. You felt that? Yeah, he said. Sorry, didn't mean to eavesdrop. You will, she replied. Often, so will I. That's going to take some getting used to, he said. I have very unhelpful thoughts. So do I, she said. We will survive. As the ship detached from the station, Caleb watched the place where he should have died drift away into the void. No dramatic farewell, just distance. Well, he said, there goes my retirement plan. Nissa took the pilot's seat. You are not mourning. I don't think so, he said slowly. I feel lighter. That is the bond, she said. You are not carrying your fear alone anymore. He considered that, then nodded. Huh. Immortality with emotional support. Didn't see that coming. Their first jump was rough. The ship's drive protested centuries of neglect, and Caleb was briefly introduced to the concept of immortality-induced nausea. I survived radiation poisoning, he groaned, gripping the console. I will not be taken out by bad piloting. Nissa shot him an offended look. I have crossed galaxies in this vessel. Then it's definitely the ship, he said. When the jump ended, stars rearranged themselves into unfamiliar constellations. Caleb stared, awe creeping in despite himself. So, he said, what now? Now, Nissa replied, we move. We do not stay long in one place. Because of your people. Yes. And now mine, technically. Yes. He felt that again, that shared weight. Exile, no longer abstract. You ever think about going back anyway? Just to see? Her jaw tightened. Every century or so. And they would not let you leave, she said, and I would not let you stay. Caleb absorbed that, then smiled faintly. Well, good thing I was never big on family reunions. They set course for a fringe world, a place beyond formal charts where trade stations clung to asteroids like barnacles. Life there was loud, messy, and indifferent to origins. Caleb found that comforting. As they approached, he felt something else, a subtle pull, a resonance that hummed between them. That's new, he said. Feels like alignment. The bond is stabilizing, Nissa said. You are anchoring. Me? He asked. I was a technician with a caffeine problem. You chose, she said simply. That matters. They docked. Noise flooded in, voices, engines, life continuing without pause. Caleb took his first step onto the platform and stopped, struck by the sheer improbability of it. I should be dead, he said quietly. Yes, Nisa agreed. But I'm not. No. He looked at her, really looked, and felt something steady answer his gaze from the other side of the bond. Okay, he said, straightening. Then let's be exiles properly. She smiled, small but real. Welcome to forever, Caleb Hart. He grinned back. Try to keep up. Time stopped being a thing Caleb could measure the way he used to. Days still passed, stars still rose and fell in unfamiliar skies, but the sharp edge of urgency had dulled into something broader and quieter. Eternity, he discovered, did not arrive all at once. It unfolded. The fringe world they settled on, temporarily, Nissa insisted, though temporary had become a flexible concept, was built into the hollowed remains of a drifting asteroid. Markets clung to the rock's interior like organized chaos. Ships came and went without asking questions, which suited exiles just fine. Caleb leaned against a railing overlooking the central dock, watching a cargo hauler argue with gravity. So this is my life now, he said. No deadlines, no radiation warnings, just questionable engineering. Nisa stood beside him, arms folded, her long ears catching the ambient light. You sound disappointed. I'm adjusting, he replied. Turns out when you remove imminent death, I need new hobbies. She glanced at him, and he felt the faint brush of amusement ripple through the bond. He smiled despite himself. Feeling her emotions had become less intrusive, more conversational. Like background music he could finally appreciate without flinching. You adapted faster than expected, she said. I had a good teacher, he said. Also, fear is very motivating. They had not been chased. Not yet. Nisa's people had felt the bond form. That much was certain, but centuries of distance and caution worked in their favor. Exile, it seemed, came with invisibility. Caleb thought about the man he had been on the station. Competent, tired, quietly convinced his life would end without much notice. That version of himself felt distant now, like a role he'd once played. Do you ever miss it? He asked suddenly. Being before? Nisa considered. Sometimes. Mortality sharpens moments, but it also compresses them. You had no time to wonder who you might become. And now I do, he said. Yes. He laughed softly. That's terrifying. They walked through the market together, passing vendors who sold things Caleb couldn't name and probably shouldn't touch. He caught himself enjoying the small things, the way light refracted through alien glass, the way people didn't look twice at Nissa's ears here. He realized he wasn't waiting for something to end anymore. Later, back aboard the ship, Caleb worked at a console, fingers flying with practiced ease. He had repaired the drive, upgraded the shields, rewritten half the navigation software just because he could. You are building something, Nisa observed. I need project, he said. Immortality is wasted if you don't tinker. She watched him, something warm and unfamiliar echoing through the bond. Pride, maybe, or relief. You have changed, she said. He shrugged. I'm less afraid. That night, or what passed for it, Caleb lay awake, staring at the ceiling. He felt Nissa nearby, not physically this time, but present, grounded. Hey, he said into the quiet. Yes, she replied immediately. You ever regret asking me? There was a pause, longer than usual. He felt her turn the question over, honest as always. No, she said, but I was afraid you would regret saying yes. He smiled into the darkness. I thought I would too. And now? He considered the endless stretch ahead, not as a burden, but as space. Room to choose, room to fail and try again. Now, he said, I think the price wasn't exile. Nissa waited. I think the price was responsibility, he continued. To keep going, to care, to stay. Her presence warmed, steady and sure. You understand more than you should so soon. Give me a few centuries, he said. I'll really get insufferable. She laughed, the sound light and real. It echoed not just in the room, but inside him, a shared resonance that no longer frightened him. In the days that followed, they left the asteroid world as planned. They always left. But leaving no longer felt like loss. It felt like movement. As the ship slipped back into the dark between stars, Caleb took one last look at the fading lights behind them. You know, he said, I never asked if there was a way back. For you. Nisa's gaze stayed forward. There is not. He nodded. Okay. She glanced at him then, searching. You do not ask if I want one. He met her eyes, felt the certainty between them. You already chose, he said. So did I. The ship jumped, stars stretching into lines, then settling again into new patterns. Somewhere out there were civilizations that would never know them, and others they would brush past like ghosts. Time would pass. They would change. Caleb leaned back in his seat, hands laced behind his head. Well, he said, ready for the next few thousand years? Nisa allowed herself a small, unguarded smile. With you, she said, I think exile will be manageable. He closed his eyes, feeling the hum of the ship, the quiet certainty of the bond, the steady truth of a life no longer defined by its ending. For the first time, forever did not feel like a